Good afternoon, Tri-State bourbon, beer, and barbecue aficionados. I'm going to try something for the first time. I'm going to do a demo for you. My name's Scott. I'm a moderator in all three groups, and you will probably see me post quite a bit and hear from me. Always feel free to ask questions, send me a message. I'm always happy to help however I can as far as finding good bourbon goes, trading samples, or helping you get smoking and barbecue going. What I'm going to do today is I am going to make a fatty. Also, basically a stuffed meatloaf. Fatty is the reference to it. Typically wrapped in bacon on the outside. I'm going to stuff mine with bacon on the inside. I'm going to try and shoot this all in one take with no edits, so bear with me. Hopefully it turns out well. First things first, I like to drink while I cook, so let's see what we're having. Of course, I have my nice Tri-State glassware. This is an infinity bottle. It is all wild turkey products. I got this idea on Thanksgiving, as on Thanksgiving I did a wild turkey only day. So that has wild turkey, Kentucky Spirit store pick. It has the 60th diamond anniversary in it. It has 8 different bottles of Russell's Reserve store picks in it. It also has Long Branch and Rare Breed. So this has been sitting for a couple weeks, so I'm gonna give this a try for the first time. I'm just gonna do a small pour here and enjoy it while I'm cooking. No crazy pours like Trevor likes to do. We'll see how this turns out. I also am a beer drinker. I always like to have a shot in a beer when I get home from work. Today we're gonna go with the Country Boy Shotgun Wedding. I know some other people in the group really like this one. It's a little bit sweeter, it has some vanilla notes. It should play well with that wild turkey. It turned out pretty good. It has a little bit more bite than I thought it would. You get a little bit of smokiness from the Long Branch. Not as fruity, much fruitiness as some of the Russell's store picks I thought would add to it, but really kind of a nice blended drinker. And about a perfect pairing. I noticed the vanilla type ales and beers, Kentucky vanilla barrel aged cream ale, go really nice with bourbons that have a little bit of spice to them, especially when they have a rye note. They play off each other nicely. Okay, so now we're going to work on making our fatty, aka stuffed meatloaf. What I started off here was a nice mix from my local store. I got a little over 2 pounds of chuck, 1 pound of ground pork, and 1 pound of bulk Italian sausage. My local stores here do a really good job on their sausages and brats, so I just roll with that. Starting off with a basic seasoning, Jane's Crazy mixed up salt with some fresh cracked black pepper. Save a little bit on the side, and I'll mix that back in as I'm mixing. Going to use a little bit of spicy Southwest mustard as a binder and a little bit of flavor. And of course, going to crack an egg in it. Also, as a binding agent, I'm going to use some old stale crackers. I do like the sesame ones, Ritz crackers, old potato chips, breadcrumbs, whatever you want to do. Now, typically, if I wasn't making a stuffed meatloaf, I would add chopped onion and chopped bell pepper to it, same as I would on my meatballs. But since I'm doing a stuffed one, I'm going to put onions and other things in it. I'm not going to put chunks of pepper and onion. Hopefully that should be enough. I have another little package back there if I need to go after more. Now I'm going to dig in here pretty good here, so I'm going to throw on a pair of gloves and get this mixed up nicely. Bourbon definitely helps. I want to mix this pretty good. I'm not necessarily going to need it, but I'm actually going to get in and kind of break up this sausage and break up the pork and kind of separate it before I start blending, because I do want to kind of even mix. What I'm going here for is texture and flavor. I'm using ground chuck, which has great flavor, but it's on the lean side. And since I'm going to do smoke on this, it's going to be a longer cook. I really don't want it to dry out. So that's why I'm adding that ground pork in there. Obviously, the Italian sausage is for flavor. I think it cuts up that pork a little bit because the ground pork is very mild and really fatty and does not have a lot of flavor by itself unseasoned. So I think you kind of have to add something to it. Finish off a little bit of seasoning there. I probably had, this was a 2-ounce container. I probably had 1 ounce or a little bit more of dry seasoning. And I just want to mix it up real good, and as I'm looking at it, I want to see the different types of meat blend together. It's okay if they're chunky a little bit, but you just don't want a whole side of it to be just one thing. It's almost like kneading a dough. I'm really going for that nice consistency. So one way I found to do it is I'm going to make this kind of like making a giant burrito or rolling a giant fatty. So what I did, now I got that mixed, I got a big cooking tray, just lined it with foil. I'm going to take my meat mix and I'm going to push it down in there almost like you would do the crust of a pizza. I want to have even thickness so that when I roll it, when I get it in my smoker, it's going to cook pretty evenly. Now wrapping it foil is not only nice for cleanup, but you're going to see my technique when I roll it here that I'm going to get it to bind. I'm going to use the foil almost like a tortilla in rolling a burrito so that I get a nice solid, consistent thickness. Now I had almost, or actually a little bit over 4 pounds of meat here, and I found that it will fit pretty evenly on one of these trays by the time I get everything else mixed in. Thank you guys again for watching. Kind of stepped out of my comfort zone to do this for the first time. I've done some bourbon and beer reviews and stuff before, but this is a little bit different. Everybody's been egging me on to do it. So thank you, David Anthony. Always appreciate the push. Always your help and encouragement, and all my other buddies on help me score good bourbon. So it's not perfect, but you get the idea. Nice, even, smooth, consistent will help us out here in a little bit. So at the end of the day, we need it to be one solid piece without leaking, or else we'll have a big mess. Okay? There is step number 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 5. Cheers, TSBA. For those of you not into them, wild turkey products are really underrated, especially the higher end ones. So I got some nice stuffings here to mix in. This is basically going to be a bacon cheeseburger stuffed meatloaf. First, I'm going to put down a layer, just a little bit of honey mustard. I got the Sweet Baby Ray's this time. There's multiple different kinds that are really good, obviously. our goal on that, we're adding a little bit of flavor, but we're also keeping some moisture in it, and it'll help melt the cheese. I'm using a creamy melt blend. I did notice that pure cheddar, especially sliced cheddar, is not good to use in these. It gets really oily and kind of separates and gets grainy. So I've found that a shredded cheese like this one, designed to melt in, or even plain old Kraft American singles, melt really nice and have a good consistency. Now don't forget, when this is done cooking, you're really going to want to let it rest for a good 10-15 minutes before slicing, because it'll be hot and gooey and ridiculous. So I'm going to go ahead and use this whole bag. And just try to spread out evenly. Now keep in mind, the burrito reference I used, if you ever try to roll a burrito and you put too much stuff in it, it just won't come together. Same can be true on these, so you got to watch how much stuff you put in it a little bit. Some nice sliced Vidalia onion. Slice it as thin as I could without being ridiculous. As far as I'm concerned, you can add onion and garlic to everything. Kind of like wrapping it with bacon and deep frying it will always make it better. So I used a little over half a big Vidalia onion in here and sliced it thin. As this cooks up, it'll add a lot of flavor throughout it, and then when you cut into it, it'll give it a nice texture. Got some pre-sliced bacon, pre-cooked bacon. I did it the easy way. Kind of cheating. Definitely more traditional on a fatty is on the outside, but since I'm doing this as a bacon cheeseburger stuff, I like doing it all on the inside. And I'm just going to try and keep everything as even as I can in my proportions, keeping in mind that I'm going to have to close this thing up and I'm going to have to get it to fit on my smoker. I will be using a Pit Boss Series 4 vertical, and I have the classic blend chips in it, which is mesquite, pecan, and hickory. I'm a big fan of that. I also like taking pecan or hickory and mixing it 50-50 with apple or any other wood of your choice. I do have a pellet grill. I understand it's kind of cheating. I'm busy. I work 60 hours a week. It works for me. It makes me happy, and it turns out good food. So it really doesn't matter. Now, I do have a little bit of seasoning for on top of my onions. This is a product close to me and local, Wildman Chef Seasoning. If you get a chance to get a hold of it, it's really good. I use it for meat mixed with some other products, but I think primarily for potatoes and vegetables, it's outstanding, and then mixed down with other products for meat. I'm gonna put that on my onions. When I saute onions or peppers, make Philly cheesesteaks, anything like that, that Wildman seasoning is really good. Also, hash browns, fries, anything like that. I think it's a great pairing with potatoes. Now, as you look, it may seem like I used a ton of seasoning those 2 times I did it, but keep in mind I got basically 5 pounds of product here, and when you're using 5 pounds of product, you need a lot of seasoning. Okay, looking good. I got multiple layers built up, a little bit of honey mustard, cheese, bacon, onion. Let me do a little bit more honey mustard on there. And then some nice hamburger chip dill pickle slices. These are from Gordon Food Service, GFS. This is the big, giant, ridiculous jar for like $8 of a gallon of pickles. They're absolutely wonderful. They're cheap. They're easy. They last forever. Nice texture, nice flavor. You know, sometimes people knock mass-produced products. Obviously, we like smaller stuff. We like craft beers, so on and so forth. But some of the mass-produced products, there's a reason that they sell a ton of them, because they're good, they're consistent, and they're easy to find. I kind of feel that same way about the Wild Turkey Rare Breed. Good, consistent, easy to find, affordable. See, I have to get a little plug in there for my Wild Turkey. All right, so there's what we have. Looks good. Now this is where the hard part comes in, the rolling it. So I'm going to need a little drink before that. So I'm going to do it in reverse. I normally roll it towards me, but I want you to be able to see on the camera. So I got my nice foil wrap here, and what that allows me to do is get underneath it without getting all my dirty hands on it, okay? I'm gonna roll it towards, and you can see the meat folding over. I'm also gonna take the other side at the same time and roll them up to the top so they meet. And I've already discovered that I put too much stuffing in it, but it'll be okay. So what this does is gives me a baseline. See, I basically have to make everything connect without having any holes in it, or else it's going to leak all over the place. So that gives me a good starting point of bringing the two sides together. And you have the ability to get underneath it on the bottom so it's not falling apart when you grab it with your hands. So I'm just going to go in on top of this where the seam is on top. And while I have them pinched together, I'm just going to kind of join the seams. Again, it's not perfect, it's just my technique. Something I've learned. I've only done a half dozen of these or so, but I've enjoyed the results. Again, you can use any different types of meat, any different types of stuffing. Traditionally, you do see them that is bacon wrapped as opposed to bacon stuffed, but sometimes that bacon, when you're doing low temp cooks, will not cook all the way. And my wife is all about well done bacon. So in order to appease her, when I do it this way, I know the bacon's cooked already, it's in the middle, and I'm really not worried about having undercooked, chewy, gross bacon on the outside. So there we go. I'm going to keep on kind of filling in. I'm going to take a little bit of excess meat off the outside, push it towards the middle, and I really want to make sure that this is not going to come apart while it's on the smoker. Worst thing that you can have happen on this one is just to have it fall apart and drip grease and cheese and hot grossness all over the smoker, and then you have a big mess and maybe even a grease fire. So I'm going to kind of push this down. I'm going to make sure that everything is coated really well. I do see a couple of holes here. So what I'm going to do is where the joint was in it, I'm going to have that up when I put it on the smoker. So now I can kind of wrap this up, flip it over a little bit, make sure that everything's jointed together really well. And when I take it out, obviously it looks like a big burrito. I'm going to take it out in the smoker, and I'm going to roll it in a position so that where I join the two sides is on top, so hopefully I don't get any leaks. This looks like it came together pretty good. There's a couple little spots here that you can see a little bit of holes. I'm going to kind of take some off the end and fill in there. Now I'm going to put this on the smoker. I'm going to do 2 hours at 225. And I'm normally against cooking things well done, but in this case, as far as consistency, texture, making sure that everything on the inside that was sitting out on the counter, handled with my hands and everything, is done and there's no bacteria, I want to go ahead and take this to 155. So what I'm thinking is, after 2 hours or so, I'm probably going to be in that 135, 130 range on my smoker. The nice thing about the Vertical Series pellet that I have by Pit Boss is it'll hit up to 400 degrees. So at about 2 hours, I'm going to temp it, and then I'm going to crank up the temperature to about 350, maybe even 400. I'm going to put a little bit more glaze of the mustard on the outside and put a brown on it. When it hits 155 internal, I am going to take it off. I'm going to let it rest on the counter for probably a good 15 minutes or so before I slice it. It will continue to cook up a little bit, but with our stuffing, with our mustard, with the onion, it will put off some water. With the bacon, it'll put off some liquid also. It should turn out really good. So what I have is a nice, big, monstrous 5-pound meatloaf here. It's phenomenal the day of, but I really think it's almost better the day after, slicing it and making sandwiches out of it. I have a little bit more of that Wildman seasoning. I'm just going to give it a little bit of a coat on top. I had my smoker burning off while I did this at 350, so I'm going to go turn it down to 225. And when it is all ready and set to temp, I'm going to throw this bad boy in. Again, 2 hours at 225 temp. Check where I'm sitting temperature-wise. Crank up the heat. I'm probably going to put a little bit of honey mustard on it to coat the outside. A good alternative also is barbecue sauce. I don't know why, I just felt in the mood to do mustard this time. And I will get it rolling, and I will show you guys the results later. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope I did a nice job. It was my first time. If you guys like it, I will do more. Look forward to seeing you guys in the future. Cheers, TSBA.